Hey, what's up? I'm DJ Sixsmith. Welcome to the Sit Down. Rachel, Grady, and Heidi Ewing are here with us. Love Fraud coming to Showtime this weekend. How you both doing?
Good.
Excited.
Psyched.
Very excited to watch this. And Rachel, we were just talking beforehand. I mean, this has been on the shelf for several months. People got to see it at Sundance. People have been talking about it. How excited are you for people to actually learn about this story?
Oh my God, we're so excited. Maybe just slightly less excited than our subjects who have been living with this for years and years, but we're all so excited. We're so excited. It was such a strange adventure that Heidi and I went on for a year, filming this project, that I'm just dying for like all the inside knowledge, inside jokes, and shocking things to be of some sort of general knowledge.
Heidi, when did you first hear the name Richard Scott Smith?
I think it was near the end of 2017. Rachel and I were looking, and our staff was looking for a story about bigamists. We had started a conversation interested in why a man would want to have multiple families, or anyone would want to have multiple families. It sounded exhausting and strange. And so on our search, we found this blog that was called Richard the Crook Scott Smith. And on it were many, many women that had complained, that had been victimized about being been victimized by Richard Scott Smith, who had played them, who had stolen from them, who had promised love and affection and had left them with nothing, including their dignity. And so we were intrigued by this blog and by the women that were actively searching for him. And that's when we first heard the name, and we've spoken the name about 100,000 times since.
Rachel, when you think about this story, there's loss of money for women, there's loss of dignity. There, of course, is just the opportunity to talk about this publicly for the first time for a lot of people. What stands out the most to you when you think about everything involved?
In terms of the experience that we had?
Yeah, just engaging with these women and just also telling this really massive story that lasted for a long, long time.
And this is completely not something Heidi and I have ever done. We do observational, try to stay out of the way of what the story is, let it unfold, and respectfully, document it. So the fact that we met this group of women that were trying to track down this con man, and after about, a few days of filming with them, we were like, let's help them, and we became more active in the story. We've made films for 20 years. We've never done anything like this. So just that in itself was, unusual and new to us, but also just following a completely chaotic and crazy person wherever he went was also crazy making, because he made no sense. So we were on this crazy adventure trying to find him, and it took us all over the country, and the people that we ended up meeting, kind of his victims that he left in his wake, were always a big surprise.
Heidi, why don't you give us a little more insight on that? What are some of the craziest parts of traveling and trying to track this crazy man over the course of the whole project here?
Well, we kept almost catching up with him. Like, there was at one time where we knew exactly where he was, and by the time we got to that state, he had disappeared without a trace. And it was just so, it was almost like he didn't exist. It was like, is he a figment of our imagination? We also found ourselves in Kansas City and then Wichita, and then suddenly found ourselves in the Deep South with an entire new cast of characters that emerged. So, it was always a surprise. We always felt like we were a couple steps behind him, and we never had a full grasp of the grandiosity of the story in a way, because once we found his old high school friends and his aunts and his relatives, we realized that he'd been conning not just women, not just romance scams, but he had been conning and stealing from his own family members, from his own sister. Wow. He had this very dastardly past that went way beyond conning women into loving him. And so I think that was a surprise for us to realize that sort of every aspect of his life, anyone that had ever been involved with him in any kind of way, had been hurt and tainted by him. So I guess the enormity of his life as a con man was shocking, up to this very day, because right now we're hearing from more women who've seen the trailer, who turns out had affiliations with him and
Right.
bad luck with him. And so it continues even after the series was finished.
I want to talk about the emotional impact because we've had this moment with Me Too the last few years. Where we're really starting to dig in things and have a reckoning of the past. But Rachel, when you think about the emotional toll on these women, what stands out to you in the conversations that you had throughout the years tracking all this?
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the Me Too thing, because I really do believe this story is in the canon. We haven't seen the Me Too stories, and I'm sure, hopefully, we're going to talk about all of them, and this stuff is going to be a conversation that keeps going forever. But the fact that they're lower middle class, working, single moms, suburban, like, that's not the Me Too stories that have been excavated so far. The people that are getting them are, were abused by rich and famous people. And I think that makes sense that that's the first pass. But these women have been scammed and conned, and when they try and get help, no one cares, because they think they're stupid, because they think they deserve it, because they think that you saw red flags, grow up, whatever it was, they never were taken seriously, and that's wrong. So I really do see it as part of that conversation. I think he leaves people pretty broken, there's something, when you make someone not trust themselves, they're ruined. Forget about trusting other people. When you're questioning your own judgment and your own decision making, you are lost, So he does that to people. Now, if they can get the trust that for themselves back, I don't think is impossible. But I think that's definitely, once they figure out, oh, this was all a lie, he never loved me, he didn't care about my family and my kids, and that all those things he said. I mean, it takes a lot to, I think, realize, like, okay, this is this guy's problem, not my problem.